On September 10, 2025, the nation was stunned by a tragedy that would send shockwaves through every corner of American society. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, was not just a political event. It was a moment that seemed to freeze the country in disbelief and sorrow. In the chaotic aftermath, as the nation searched for answers, a live MSNBC broadcast became the unexpected flashpoint for a new and deeply divisive crisis. Dowd, a veteran political analyst respected for his sharp insights, commented that Kirk's rhetoric had pushed the boundaries of hate speech, drawing a controversial line from hateful words to hateful actions, a connection that ignited immediate controversy. Many viewers, already on edge, interpreted Dowd's remarks as blaming Kirk for his own murder, sparking outrage across social media and in living rooms nationwide. The backlash was immediate and fierce, with protests erupting outside television studios and calls for accountability echoing online. MSNBC's president, Rebecca Kutler, swiftly condemned Dowd's remarks as inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable, and announced his termination in a public statement that made headlines. Dowd issued a public apology, insisting he never intended to blame Kirk or diminish the tragedy, but the damage to his reputation and to the network was already done. His firing quickly became a symbol of a much larger debate. Where does thoughtful analysis end and victim blaming begin? The question reverberated through newsrooms and households alike. The incident forced the nation to confront urgent questions about the boundaries of public discourse, especially in moments of national tragedy, and about the responsibilities of those who shape the narrative. In today's hyper-connected world, a single comment, whether on live television or online, can end a career overnight and spark a firestorm that spreads in minutes. The Dowd controversy set the tone for what would become a nationwide reckoning as communities across the country grappled with the implications of speech, responsibility, and consequence. It wasn't just about one man's words. It was about the power and peril of speech in a deeply divided America, where every statement can become a flashpoint. The fallout would soon spread far beyond the world of cable news, touching politics, workplaces, and the very fabric of public conversation. The nation was about to witness a wave of consequences for anyone who crossed the new invisible line, one that seemed to shift with every headline. In the wake of Kirk's death, words had never carried more weight, and the boundaries of acceptable speech had never felt more uncertain. Dowd's firing was just the beginning. Across the country, a campaign of retribution took hold, targeting anyone whose public statements about Kirk's death were seen as offensive. Conservative activists mobilized online, urging followers to expose and punish those who disrespected Kirk's memory. Social media became a battleground, with digital detectives scouring posts for any sign of celebration or criticism. The line between private opinion and public offense blurred overnight. People lost jobs over fleeting, emotional posts. The movement swept up not only those who cheered violence, but also those who critiqued Kirk's politics or used the tragedy to discuss gun control. Nuance was lost in the rush to punish. The fallout spread from media to academia, sports, and public service. The message was clear. In the court of public opinion, your words could cost you everything. The nation's grief had transformed into a powerful and sometimes vengeful force. The professional consequences were just beginning. Social media fueled the purge, transforming ordinary users into digital enforcers almost overnight. Platforms like X became the front lines of a new kind of battle, with influencers such as Laura Loomer vowing to destroy the careers of anyone seen celebrating Kirk's death and rallying their followers to join the cause. Scott Presler specifically targeted teachers, urging his large online following to report educators who posted anything deemed insensitive, regardless of context or intent. A website, Expose Charlie's Murderers, went further, publishing names, locations, and employers of those labeled as offensive, making private lives suddenly public. The criteria for being targeted were alarmingly broad. Sometimes, simply criticizing Kirk's politics or sharing a meme was enough to be singled out. The process was ruthless and efficient. Find a post, identify the user, and then pressure their employer or school to take action. There was no due process, no opportunity for defense, only swift public shaming and condemnation. A single post could be amplified to millions in minutes, leading to instant, often irreversible consequences for the person behind it. Social media became a courtroom with no rules, where the digital mob demanded accountability on its own terms, often with little regard for nuance or truth. The speed and scale of the reaction were unprecedented, overwhelming individuals and institutions alike. Free expression and organized harassment collided, raising urgent ethical questions about the limits of online activism and the dangers of digital vigilantism. In the aftermath, the boundaries between justice and vengeance blurred, leaving many to wonder where accountability ends and retribution begins. The digital mob had found its power, and it was relentless, reshaping lives and reputations with a few taps on a screen. Academia, long a haven for free thought, was hit hard. Universities faced pressure from politicians and the public to act swiftly. Cumberland University canceled a scheduled lecture by Dowd. At Middle Tennessee State, a staffer was fired after posting callous comments about Kirk. Senator Marsha Blackburn publicly called for the firing of an assistant dean who expressed zero sympathy for Kirk, and the university complied. Similar incidents played out at other schools, with staff terminated for insensitive posts. The line between personal opinion and professional conduct vanished. In Florida, the education commissioner warned teachers that disgusting statements could cost them their licenses. The chilling effect on academic freedom was immediate. Educators everywhere realized a single post could end their careers. The stakes for free speech in education had never been higher. The media, once the chronicler of controversy, became its target. DC Comics canceled a Red Hood series after its writer posted inflammatory comments about Kirk's assassination. A Florida reporter was suspended for asking about gun control at a press conference, deemed insensitive in the moment. CBS host Nate Burleson faced calls for his firing after questioning the GOP's role in political violence. Even unintentional missteps, like TMZ staff laughing before Kirk's death was announced, led to public apologies. Newsrooms grew cautious, fearing that even standard questions could spark outrage. The message was clear. Journalists were now as vulnerable as anyone else. The environment was hypersensitive, and the cost of a misstep was high. The line between reporting and risking your job had never been thinner. The retribution campaign reached every corner of public life. In Arizona, a sports reporter was fired for calling Kirk evil in social media posts. The Carolina Panthers dismissed a communications coordinator for a cryptic Wu-Tang Clan reference, seen as mocking Kirk's death. Public servants weren't spared. Nashville's fire department placed an employee on leave over a post about Kirk. Employers acted swiftly, fearing association with controversy. The chilling effect spread. Anyone in any job could be targeted for a single online comment. The digital mob's reach was total. People in sports, public service, and beyond learned that their private opinions could have public consequences. The risk of professional ruin silenced many. The fallout was no longer limited to public figures. The message, no one was safe. The wave of firings forced a national reckoning over free speech and accountability. Suddenly, questions that once seemed theoretical became urgent and deeply personal for millions of Americans. In workplaces and online, people began to wonder, what are the real limits of expression in our society? The First Amendment protects against government censorship, but not from private employers. While the Constitution guarantees freedom from state suppression, it does not shield individuals from the consequences imposed by their bosses or companies. Legally, companies can fire employees for speech that harms their reputation. This power gives businesses broad discretion to act in the name of protecting their image, even if it means letting go of longtime staff. But the speed and scale of these terminations created a chilling effect. The fear spread quickly, leaving many to question whether any opinion was truly safe to share. People began to self-censor, fearing that a single post could end their careers. The boundaries of acceptable speech seemed to shrink overnight, and the pressure to remain silent grew stronger. The debate grew murky. Where is the line between abhorrent speech and legitimate critique? Is it possible to have honest conversations without risking severe consequences? Employers have a right to protect their brands, but overreach risks silencing dissent. When companies act too aggressively, they may stifle important conversations and discourage employees from speaking up. The campaign for retribution targeted not just those who celebrated violence, but also those who offered political critiques or simply lacked sympathy. Even nuanced or misunderstood statements became grounds for punishment. If any insensitive comment can lead to firing, we risk a culture intolerant of disagreement. The fear of backlash can make people withdraw from public debate altogether. The challenge is to distinguish between truly hateful speech and controversial, poorly timed, or unpopular opinions. Without clear standards, the line between accountability and overreach blurs. The stakes for public discourse have never been higher. Our ability to engage in open, honest dialogue is at risk, and the consequences will shape our democracy for years to come. The nation must decide, how much speech are we willing to silence in the name of accountability? The answer will define the boundaries of our freedom and the health of our democracy. As the outrage subsides, we must ask, are these punishments proportional? Careers and reputations were destroyed over single, sometimes contextless posts. Digital vigilantism replaced due process. No trial, no defense, just public pressure. The risk of misidentification and overreaction was real. Political actors used the tragedy to settle scores and assert power. The campaign was about more than mourning. It was about control. Each click and share added to the pressure, fueling a system of swift, often brutal justice. A more ethical response demands pause, context, and resistance to the mob's pull, even when we're offended. The fallout from Dowd's comments and the nationwide purge has left America at a crossroads. If we continue down this path, fear, not freedom, will govern public discourse. Employers must resist online mobs and create fair, consistent policies for employee speech. Not every offensive tweet should end a career. Context and apologies should matter. We must learn to distinguish between dangerous speech and mere disagreement. Instead of demanding firings, we should engage, debate, and advocate for better ideas. A healthy democracy needs open, even uncomfortable conversation. The tragedy of Kirk's death should prompt reflection, not escalation. We must lower the temperature and remember our shared humanity. Accountability matters, but so does forgiveness and proportion. Only then can we step back from the brink and rebuild a more civil society.